Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's
Hello and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the man of many names, the outlaw Harley Ray, the bruiser Bronson, Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, or you can call me Josh for short. And with me as always is my very own scream queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India horror, the experts of guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Amy Rose. I made you sound like a foreign person there. I said the experts of guts and gore.
Those. Hi.
And we are essentially here, I was just saying it to you, for the season finale of season one, the two-part season finale of season one of It's Alive podcast. We've been doing this nearly one whole year.
Yep. Yeah, I'm losing my voice because of it.
And I'm fucking buzzed for it, because this is where I want to go big into the season finale. I'm planning on going bigger into the fucking next season. We put a lot of work in this year.
Yep.
We've developed these stories. We've gotten better at them over time. And I think things are starting to fucking work in our favour, and things are looking good for us, and we're having fun doing it.
Yeah. Nearly
And by
split
the
up
time
twice.
by the time people have heard this, we'll have been to see Alien Romulus.
Yeah.
The premiere, the Irish premiere, our first premiere. It's going to be cool. We're going to see it before everybody else.
It's generally released on the 16th on Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah, we get it 2 days earlier than everybody else by going to the premiere.
Oh,
but it's
so
cool.
it's
The
15th.
first premiere is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's an Irish premiere. I'm not expecting to see huge superstars or anything.
No.
But I'm sure we get to meet some people. It'll be cool. It'll be fun. And I can't wait to cover that at some stage as well. The xenomorph aliens. Amy hates it whenever I bring up aliens. She knows I'm going to go crazy and go off on one. But
See, I don't mind that.
what,
The
xenomorphs?
Yeah.
Oh, there's lots of different types of aliens I want to talk about. We'll have like multiple. Do you know what we'll do? Instead of like dedicating one episode of xenomorphs, I'm just going to have like aliens part one, and it's just going to be various different aliens from around the horrorverse, and there's lots of them. You can go into the sci-fi verse as well and find some of these guys, and I like that. So I'll be crossing over a bit, and we'll have fun with that.
I like the thing that would qualify.
Huh?
The thing. Is that an alien?
The thing that happened in Antarctica one time? Yes, in the horrorverse. It's been a year, Amy. You should know what we're doing.
Oh my God, you nearly broke your mouth.
Mouse just jumped. I give it a fright. Anyway, we finished up before our summer. We took 2 weeks off for our summer break. We didn't really take a break. We've been writing scripts and trying to get ahead of ourselves here, and we've done it. This is actually on time.
Finally.
But when we left off, we left with a particularly nasty story with Peter Bunch, the New York Ripper, and it wasn't nice.
No.
It wasn't very, PG or friendly, and not one you want to be retelling. And I decided, you know what, we're going to finish off with a two-parter that is fucking worse than that. We're going to look at the Collingwoods Revenge, which is it has a happy ending, kind of. But there's because I mean, you'll notice that I didn't bother with a joke this time coming into the episode.
Because it's so serious?
Well, no, not just because it's so seriously, because usually I joke about the topic. If we're going to talk about vampires, I'll find a vampire joke. If we're going to talk about serial killers, I'll find a serial killer joke. I didn't think rape jokes were the right way to go today.
No.
So that's an early warning sign for everybody here that's listening. We don't often do, what do they call them again? What do the people who get offended call them again? The warnings that you need.
Oh, trigger warning.
Trigger warning. That's triggers. That's it. I don't have triggers, so I'm cool. But people who need a trigger warning we don't often do trigger warnings, but I feel even in this sense, this is a little bit graphic. It's a little bit much. So, trigger warning. Lots of sex stuff today. And not necessarily consensual sex stuff either. So, not the good type of sex stuff. The bad type of sex stuff. So, and that is because we will be covering, like I said, the Collingwoods, our family we will be covering. But first, to get to them, which we'll be doing next week, we need to look at Krug. I keep fucking this up. I keep going to call him Krug. And there's a wrestler called Krug, and it's just fucking me up every time. Krug Stillo and his gang of misfits. And we'll be getting into that right now. So you ready?
Yes.
This is going to be nasty.
Okay.
And I throw in more nasty facts as we go along while we're at it, because I said, fuck it, why not? We might as well pile all this shit right here today.
Amazing.
So Krug Stillo, also known as Leo Hill, along with a variety of other aliases, was an American serial killer. During the late 1960s, early 1970s, he and his accomplice Fred the Weasel Podolsky, girlfriend Sadie Rain, and son Krug Jr. raped, tortured, and murdered an estimated 11 to 25 victims at a remote cabin near Wilseyville, California. I might be getting that wrong.
Wilseyville.
Yeah, cool. California, in the Sierra Nevada foothills, located 150 miles east of San Francisco. Why does all this bad shit happen in California? It seems like such a happiness. We would just literally have finished watching the closing ceremony for the Paris Olympics before we recorded this, right?
Yeah.
So, no big secret. It's Sunday.
Yeah.
This comes out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But they did the whole thing of bringing it to LA, and they bought Tom Cruise, who is looking old as fuck and still is. He is fucking scary, fucking crazy. Like, even the way he ran looked crazy. Mm-hmm. But it looks like such a when they got there, they had the Red Hot Chili Peppers playing, Billie Eilish came out and played, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre came out looking like the coolest grandpas of all time, knocking out some old tracks, and they had like fucking nice colours and everything, and it looked sunny and there was a nice breeze, and it looked like a nice place, but yet still so many people are killing each other.
I would think it's because the same way that there's, you know, like a lot of killings in and around like Dublin and Wicklow that are never be solved because you've got like this really mountainy area in Wicklow.
Places to hide the body.
The same thing, like you just said, the Sierra Nevada foothills.
Well, it'll come into play here as well a fair bit. Because of them choosing victims close to their home, attention was drawn to them that would eventually lead the murderous gang to go on the run, eventually leading them down a road that would see the group come to a bloody end. But in this story, the cops, FBI, or even the army are not the heroes of the day. Today we talk about what happens when the victims get revenge and why you should never stay the night just down the road from one of your kills, because you never know who's going to be living close by. Yeah. Did you ever see this fucking thing going around about the mother whose daughter gets killed by some cartel people and she goes on a taken fucking rampage? But it wasn't, from what I can tell, I think I read it eventually, it wasn't like a taken rampage, like she wasn't going around killing them or anything, was she? She was having them locked up, arrested and stuff, wasn't she? Or did she? She died.
She was shot. Like she died as well.
The cartel shot her down as well.
Yeah. But I have a funny feeling she was actually like, she took out one or two of them, but she had more arrested, I'm pretty sure, I think.
Mental. Well, yeah.
What would you do?
Well, again, next week more so you're going to hear about what happens when a family needs to get revenge on some scumbags. And this week I'm going to make you see how big a scumbag they fucking really are.
Do you see?
Stillo was born in San Francisco, California. When he was 6 years old, his parents separated, whereupon he and his siblings moved in with their maternal grandmother. Stillo was reportedly a bright child, but after habitually photographing his sister's nude, which his grandmother apparently encouraged, he became obsessed with pornography. He then reportedly extorted his sisters to perform sexual acts. Stillo also collected mice and killed them by dissolving them in chemicals. In the same manner, he would later dispose of some of his human victims' corpses. So my question here is, why did pornography have such a negative effect on people in the 60s, 70s and 80s? I mean, at the time, what they had access to was, there were magazines or maybe some grainy videos, nothing like we have today,
Yeah.
So back then, they had to seek this stuff out. So I can't imagine there'd be the same level of even aggression in what they're watching. Because I'll admit, some of the stuff that's up there now is pretty aggressive,
Yeah.
These days you can find any kind of awful shit there. Every fantasy, no matter how depraved, is catered for. So is it just something we've become desensitized to, or is it a sudden lack of morals in a way of religion? I mean, I say morals, but our generation would probably say it's liberation of these religious laws that have caused the floodgates to open. But
I think it's kind of like a thing of like what was beginning to be more readily available in the 60s, 70s and 80s. I mean, that street in New York, And they often say that the 70s was like the height of it, like all the
red light districts and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sex
Like it kind of
workers
went
on the
hand in
corner
hand with danger. But I think we are desensitized to it, like to a certain degree. But then at the same time, you had like the women's rights movement, like 60s and 70s, and like women would have been like, well, was there more mammy issues because women were like, well, fuck this, I'm not staying in a household where I'm going to be treated and left.
Like Homer Simpson syndrome, like where your mom goes away.
Except in a terrible way. Like,
no, I get what you're saying. Yeah. Women kind of felt at the time. Well, and I mean, look, you can kind of understand why, but they felt like they had to go out and do something about their situation, kind of thing.
Oh, exactly.
And you would have had a lot of women back then kind of forced into marriages in the kind of sense of you're expected to. Here's a good husband for you, now fucking marry him. And then she realizes a couple of years later, I don't want to fucking be here, and I don't have to fucking be here. Exactly. And unfortunately, the kids are probably the ones that are going to suffer the most from that. But
exactly. I mean, like, if you think about a kid that, like, when everybody was starting to become more sexually liberated, and you think of a kid maybe with like a mother, obviously with a mother and a father, and the father's away at work, and next thing this kid sees his mother out with somebody, and then the relationship breaks down, and he blames the mother, and then he gets exposed to porn, and he thinks, oh, all women are like this. My mother.
You do see that with a lot of serial killers, like that say that once they I mean, we talked about when we were talking about Frank Zito a few months ago. Same kind of fucking thing when they're seeing their actual parents being treated like that, and then seeing it on TV, and
it kind of almost kind of like reinforces in them that treatment's okay.
And if they already it's not like you walking in and seeing your parents having sex or something like that. That's not a big deal.
It's a loving thing.
But when it's broken up the relationship, you obviously put a negative tone on it straight away, like
exactly.
But I mean, like the only reason I bring it up is because you have Bundy, BTK, I mean Dahmer to an extent, and this nasty ass fucker Arthur Gary Bishop, who we cover on Mini Monsters this week, who all kind of claimed pornography ruined their life, Amy. Ruined their fucking life. And I stick by, if that's fucking true, then most of this world is full of fucking... And I think I was watching a documentary where a woman said it as well, a psychologist, and they were like, well, this person said porn ruined their life. And I was like, hang on 1 second. If that was a factor here, then the 90% of this world would be fucking serial killers right now. So it's like, no, that doesn't count. But they all claim that, like, do you want to hear a bit about Gary Bishop again, or Arthur Gary Bishop again?
Oh, go on, so.
So, like we've said before, that obviously people, there's doing this podcast, we found a lot of killers we've never heard of. And there's obviously kind of a few that are pushed to the front who are nasty and fucking despicable people, but manageable for mainstream consumption. People, the stuff you can handle. And that's like, the likes of Gacy, Bundy, Dahmer, who are like, the heads of the figureheads of the serial killer, the face of serial killing, basically.
Yeah.
And that's because we can handle it. It's just disgusting enough to kind of hold your attention, but not really fucking destroy your mind. Whereas if you start looking at some of these other guys who aren't as popular, who you don't really hear of, you start to figure out there's a reason why you're not hearing about these people, because it's too much for the average person to be listening to. And I'll admit it myself, if I read enough of this stuff, eventually my brain starts to get all frazzled, and it feels like an old TV that's on the blink, the lines are going through and it's gone fuzzy and stuff.
You just need a good slap across the back of the head.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, most of what you hear in the media is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all these psycho killers. So,
are you about to profile this guy?
A little bit. So put on your noise cancelling headphones.
How bad are we talking here, like?
It's fucking bad enough. Like, I mean, I can feel myself getting pissed off as I read it. Even at the end, right, Bishop was apparently remorseful, didn't fight his execution or anything like that, and was constantly apologising to the families of the victims. It was kind of like, I couldn't accept it. Whatever about them, I couldn't accept his apology. What he did was so fucking disgusting that I didn't want to read his apology. Nothing he could say was going to redeem himself from this. And I'm usually opposed to the death sentence, but this fucking guy deserved to go. Like, we didn't need him around.
Yeah, so he obviously did something to kids. I know this because while Josh is opposed to death sentence for killers, he'd gladly throw every single paedophile to the lions.
Yeah, 2 birds with 1 stone. There you get rid of all the pedos, and it makes for a great monthly pay-per-view. From Folsom Prison Coliseum, 1 line, 10 pedos. Who will survive the longest? Or just, go jigsaw on them and let us
Let's
watch
go
it all. While we're on the subject, I'll tell you why I'd be more for harsher crimes than sex offenders, especially child sex offenders. Whatever way you cut it, the sex offenders ruined someone's life, taken away their trust in humanity, and essentially destroyed future life prospects.
Yeah.
To me, this is as good as murder. It's as good as killing somebody by doing something like this, because you fuck their life up to that degree. And I mean, with the death penalty, when it comes to like murder, it's harder sometimes to prove that that person is a killer, because they can kill from miles away. Like, you know, I could kill you with poison, I could kill you with a fucking sniper rifle, whatever. But when it comes to sex offending, it's a lot easier to identify the fucking guilty culprit, because it's very, very hard to get that close and that personal with somebody without leaving something behind, you know? So it's easier to fucking identify the guilty party. But whatever way you feel about the death sentence, I doubt anyone was protesting outside the prison in the name of Arthur Gary Bishop.
Oh, no.
Bishop was an ex-Mormon. He was excommunicated for an embezzlement charge he skipped out on. Apparently they took him back, right? But he refused. Something about he refused to give money back, or if he refused to apologise for it or something. And
so he embezzled from the Mormons?
No.
Or they just weren't happy that he was a criminal?
Yeah. I think it was something. It might have been someone that was connected. You know, that church did all be kind of in each other's back pocket.
Yeah.
Like. Anyway, Bishop kidnapped, molested and murdered at least 5 young boys between October 1979 and July 1983. I don't want to go into all the nitty gritty details, but this man essentially used to lure kids as young as 4 years old to his home, or in one case on a camping trip, where he would incapacitate, molest and murder them. If you want to hear more about it, you can listen to Mini Monsters, and you can go on to Real Monsters and hear us discuss it.
Yeah.
One of the kids was shot 3 times in the woods before being torn apart, and that's how I found it quoted, by Bishop, who went into a wild rage. And that's the thing about this guy. It seems like he used to get worked up and go into a frenzy when murdering these children. In most cases, he used a hammer to subdue the kids before drowning them in his bathtub and disposing of the body. When he was caught, he admitted that after the murder of 4-year-old Alonzo Daniels, who he was his first victim, he used to buy puppies and recreate the murder, stating that the puppies used to cry and scream just like Alonzo. He loved listening to their pain, although he admits that during the murder, the sound of the child's moans infuriated him, causing him to use his hammer more liberally than he had intended.
The fact that he was able to like compare it to a puppy, like it's even like worse, because he knows how innocent the child is, like, do you know, like
but you know what's disgusting is I can almost see, because I've seen it in so many fucking TV shows and movies and stuff like that, but this guy is saying he's getting pleasure out of their moans, but at the same time getting infuriated and hurting them harder because of it, like, and it's just it's scary to think people like that fucking exist, or someone that would do that to something so defenseless and so trusting and fucking, you know.
Absolutely.
What's worse is he had lured the kid in from the courtyard of his apartment complex to his own apartment with the promise of free candy. When he was done, he stuffed the child's body into a box and left to dispose of it. He passed Daniel's mother on the way out as the woman frantically searched and called out for her son.
Imagine having the balls.
Well, it's right outside his house. And look, that kind of is what got him caught. There was the close proximity of everything that was happening.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was remorseful afterwards and not appealing his death sentence, requesting to be executed by lethal injection. He even turned down his last meal, thinking he didn't deserve it. In a letter to his victims before his death, he wrote, and again, I said this to you, when we covered this on Mini Monsters and on Real Monsters, I was like, somebody is going to fucking isolate this next sentence, and I am going to fucking have to deal with this for the rest of my life. But I'm keeping this episode locked safely so that I can play it as proof of its origin. So Bishop said, I am a homosexual paedophile convicted of murder, and pornography was a determining factor in my downfall.
There was no way you're going to confess to it in that voice, so I think you're safe.
So what way with you? Somehow I became sexually attracted to young boys, and I would fantasize about them naked. Certain bookstores offered sex education, photographic or art books, which occasionally contain pictures of nude boys. I purchased such books and used them to enhance my masturbatory fantasies. Finding and procuring sexually arousing materials became an obsession. For me, seeing pornography was lighting a fuse. He has to get angrier as the evil genius goes on.
Is he Southern?
A fuse of a... What?
Is he Southern?
I have no idea what he is.
Try it.
A stick of dynamite. I became stimulated and had to gratify my urges or explode. All boys became more sexual objects. My conscience was desensitized and my sexual appetite entirely controlled my actions. They always blame it like it's some sort of fucking
Dark
demon.
passenger.
Yeah, fucking hell. Dexter's fucking bad influence. Just die and stay dead, you bastard. 5 fucking episodes on you. Bishop was executed by lethal injection at Utah State Prison. Utah, that would that be Southern? No. Utah. I can't figure out where that is in the map. Anyway, it was Utah State Prison in Point of the Mountain on June 10th, 1988. His last words or statement was to the family of his victims. He said, I want to offer my most profound and heartfelt apologies to my victims' family. I'm truly sorry. I have tried my best to empathize with your grief and devastation, and I hope they come to know my concerns and prayers for them. I fucking hate this guy, and this is bullshit. This is the most backhanded fucking apology I've ever heard. As soon as he said, I tried my best to emphasize, I said emphasize. I shouldn't have said emphasize. Empathize. So maybe it made more sense now. But still, fuck you with your empathizing, you fucking sick prick.
Yeah.
Fuck this guy. Jesus
Absolutely.
Christ.
Yeah. Porn or no porn.
She doesn't even, that's how little she watches of it. She can't even pronounce it. She won't even let it out of her good Christian mouth.
Porn or no porn, this guy was going to do fucked up things. And like, what's worse is it's never been easier for these sick fucks to get their fix. And the dark web takes care of that. And it's absolutely disgusting. And while I don't know about the death penalty, I agree with you that stiffer sentences should be put in place for people who commit sex crimes or any crime at all against a child or vulnerable person.
Yeah, eventually it's going to be serial killer rapist looking for a suitable victim. Must be between the ages of 29 and 60, able body, at least an average IQ, good personality, fit body, a plus but not essential. If interested, contact me at chrishagan69 at notakiller.com.
You said today it was going to be a rough one, and I'm assuming Bishop is the worst of it.
Oh yeah, it's all uphill from here, from child rape and murder to teen rape and murder, with a little child murder sprinkled in. So yeah, bunch of adults die too though.
Yeah. And I'm done, so see you next week.
Patreon is alive, alive, live, alive, live, alive. Patreon is alive, alive, horror podcast. Patreon is alive, alive, live, alive, live, alive. Patreon is alive, alive, horror podcast.
Hey kids, can't get enough of that blood, guts and gore? Then head on over to our Patreon, where for just $5 a month you'll get exclusive access to our true crime show Real Monsters and horrific history tales from Playing with Bones with Amy Rose, along with early access to our minisodes and ad-free access to everything else. All this and loads more horror-tastic extras from the Horrorverse. So what are you waiting for? Permission? Go nick your parents' card today and subscribe now at patreon.com/It's Alive Alive Pod. Remember, that's It's Alive Alive Podcast, a really, really fake true crime horror podcast. It's Alive Alive, all the guts and gore with none of the guilt. So before we got sidetracked by Arthur Gary Bishop, we were talking about how Krug Stillo's parents had separated and he had been relocated to his grandmother's home where she took care of him and his siblings.
Took care of him. Is this not the grandmother that made him take pictures of his sister naked? Like, that's not exactly a model caregiver.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and I couldn't find a whole lot more information about it, to be honest. I mean, this would definitely be a factor in the way he views women later. I mean, how could it not be? We've talked about it earlier. I mean, he's going to associate this going forward. But apparently that's what happened, and eventually he'd progressed that along to sexual abuse. Now again, I couldn't find out a whole lot of specifics about this either, just that he extorted them to get them to do sexual acts. I don't know if that was on him or together for his pleasure. Either way, it's fucked up.
Yeah, to say the least.
It doesn't look like it stopped either, and most likely went on for their entire teenage years until Krug turned 19 and enlisted himself in the US Army, joining the Marine Corps. He served 3 tours of duty in Vietnam as a radar electronics technician. During this period, Krug was first diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. I've never heard of it like that. Schizoid was always like an insult in there, a lame insult.
Yeah.
Like something you'd hear on an American movie, like, he's schizoid. But, yeah, so after that, what was termed a delusional breakdown happened in Da Nang. He received some psychotherapy and in 1959 a medical discharge.
Okay.
So I assume does that work out as an honourable discharge? Does it work out the same? Like, is that because it's medical?
Yeah, well, because it's medical, it definitely can't be dishonourable, like, unless you, like,
Apparently
put
it's really
off
hard
your
for
own,
them to
like,
get, like, work or anything if it's a dishonourable discharge. They get
Well,
get
yeah.
real offended about it.
should it not be kind of seen as the same thing as treason, as in, like, you
Suppose
fucked
so,
up
yeah,
working?
essentially,
Yeah.
Stillo settled in San Jose and enrolled at San Jose State University, but dropped out after 1 semester upon becoming enamored with the hippie lifestyle in San Francisco.
Of course.
He moved to a commune there and married briefly in 1962. The marriage dissolved after his wife discovered that he was making and appearing in amateur pornographic movies, usually involving bondage and sadomasochism. I can barely say that fucking word ever. What's the difference? What's sadomasochism?
Sadomasochism, like, as in
Hurting somebody for the pleasure of hurting someone, isn't it?
exactly. But both, obviously, the sadist and the masochist are both consenting, like, so.
Oh yeah, in the best case scenario, yeah.
Bondage is more kind of like
tying
servitude,
up
isn't
and
it?
stuff, isn't
Like,
it?
yeah, but as in, like, the whole point is serving somebody, you know, I suppose.
Oh,
like, yeah.
No.
That's the way I'd see it. I'm not 100% sure.
So slaves and stuff, that's a bit weird. I'm not into the whole slave thing. For the next 8 years, Stillo lived at the Greenfield Ranch, a 5,600-acre back-to-the-land settlement near Calpella, north of Ukiah, California. There, he met long-term girlfriend and accomplice Sadie Rain, who became involved in Krug's fantasies and appeared in many of his pornographic films.
Sadie had a troubled childhood as both of her parents were abusive alcoholics. Her mother died when she was a child and her father sexually abused her starting at the age of 11. After her father remarried, he put her in various foster homes, which she constantly ran away from. And at age of 16, she ran away for good, making her way as an armed robber. So she'd go out on the street and act as a sex worker to attract unsuspecting guys. Then once she had them alone, she'd pull out her gun, shoot them in the foot, and then rob them. She made her way like this for the first year before meeting Krug.
Someone has daddy issues.
Yeah.
A 17-year-old hooking up with a 35-year-old man after her upbringing. Yeah. Along with the addition of Sadie at Greenfield Ranch, a man named Fred the Weasel Podolsky, they called him Weasel for short, he also came along into the group.
You can imagine what the guy was like with a nickname like that, like, in fairness. I mean, names like Weasel, Rat, Snake, they're never given to nice, reputable people. And looking at this guy's mugshots and Murderpedia, I can tell you the name really fits. Like, he looks like a little weasel.
Yeah, Weasel was a 29-year-old drifter when he met Krug, and very little is known about his background before meeting Krug, as he claimed to be an orphan who had been drifting through life since he was a kid. Investigating officers say they found some links to the man in New York, but could never really corroborate the lead, and eventually people stopped trying to look, so it seems that part of his life kind of died with him. The information we do have is all from 1965 on, and none of it is pleasant. It would appear that the two men bonded over their shared love of torture porn and doomsday prepping. So if you were a doomsday prepper, what are you taking into the
Into the shelter.
yeah? What's essential for the next life?
Tins of tuna, first of all. For the music. Like, I don't want to have not have music. Like, was it in The Walking Dead or what zombie thing that we were watching? And obviously it was
They haven't heard music in a while,
and it was just like when that clicked to me, it's like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want to not be able to, like, break the silence by not fucking being able to turn the radio.
Yeah.
That would annoy the shit out of me.
I think if it was before the day of the internet, I'd be able to handle it a lot better. But now that we have the internet and I have such an availability to music, movies and TV shows that and other media like comics and stuff like that, it would be very hard for me to suddenly have no media whatsoever to deal with.
I think I'd feel extremely small because I'd feel so cut off from the rest of the world because there'd be no way of fucking contacting the rest of the world. Ooh,
What?
lightning.
You saw lightning?
Yeah.
So it could be thunder. But, yeah. Does it ever freak you out? Do you ever think about it? Like, especially with the way things go these days with the fucking political kind of shit that goes on between America, Russia, and all those other Middle Eastern crazy countries. Do you think that, like, does it play on your mind, the idea that we might have to fucking hunker down at some point?
It plays on my mind more than what
bit.
happened, do you know, like, as in, like, that it would be, like, do you know, we'd all just be ashes, like, in 2 seconds. I know that if there is, like, if we're outside and you know, like, there is a nuclear detonation, you get down on obviously, like, on your face so that you can protect all your skin, but, like, you can't move from that position until the shock waves are done and dusted, and then you run to your house, because the fallout, always thought that fallout would be like chemicals in the air, and it is like chemicals in the air. Holy shit, the lightning's giving us socks. And it is like chemicals in the air, but it's actually like more like sand. It's like chemical particles, like, so you have all that floating around afterwards. But I mean,
and what, if you stay low to the ground, you're a better chance of not getting in contact with this stuff?
No, it's that comes after the shock waves. But you can't move, obviously, because if you stand up before that, the shockwaves are going to get you. Like, you don't want to be hit by them. But like, if you stay close to the ground, then while the detonation is occurring, your skin isn't going to get burnt off your face because you've got your face down on the ground.
Holy
is what
shit.
I mean.
Scary,
you know,
fucking thought.
What creeps me out even more is, and it fucks with my mind every time I think of it, is the shadows. The shadows in Japan. And it's like, we don't know physics well enough to know, like, is it just the shadow, or is this man's entire consciousness locked into this one position, like, because of how powerful? I mean, like, it's a burst of energy. What is it doing? Like, it's the same concept of like energy ghosts, and then energy, like you know,
I suppose
that would fucks with my head so much. What if that's like, because his walking stick and all is there, like.
It's creepy, all right. See, again, we're lucky we live in Ireland. It's not a huge issue. I can understand living in America why you'd be doomsday prepping a bit more. Why it's more common there. Why they have bunkers. Because they have a risk of being attacked. Like, I mean, it's a small risk. People don't risk it much very often. I mean, if they had the Cold War, would have heated up. But yeah, I mean, as long as I had, like you, my favorite food and some music and shit, I think I'd be pretty happy in my bunker. But it's safe to say, like, we'd be looking at entertainment, food, survival stuff.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be decking it out as a porno studio.
No, I need something to keep my brain more active than that, to be honest.
Well, these two guys, they wasted no time building a bunker together on the ranch once they all hooked up, and they quickly burnt through all their cash.
2 psychos and a bunker, like, that's never a good mix. Look at the guys like David Parker Ray, the toy box killer, Todd Colehep, or Israel Keys.
That was David Parker Ray, the toy box killer, in case you missed that, because it sounded like it was Todd Keppel. They're different guys. Todd Keppel is I can never say his name properly. He was the guy that was caught with the girl in the storage container outside his back garden. Remember, she was tied up and they saved her?
There's videos of that.
Yeah, he shot up like some fucking motorbike store or something like that. Said that he used to work in, or he used to frequent, or something like that. Israel Keys and David Parker Ray are fucked up. We will cover them on Mini Monsters and Real Monsters someday. David Parker Ray freaks me out for one specific reason. It's something I said to you. I think I was saying it to you. I rather said it to you on the air, or I said it to you in private. But I said, like, half the time these killers, I can deal with guys like fucking, again, Bundy or Dahmer or fucking whatever, fucking killing people and doing it like, they literally, like BTK, he'd never tell him he was BTK until the last minute. He'd keep him at ease, he wouldn't want him panicking, he wouldn't want him freaking out, he wouldn't want to scare him, and then last minute he'd tell him and kill him. And it was over
they're easier to manage when they're
yeah. But David Parker Ray used to drug the women, put him into this, what was essentially like, it was rather like a dentist chair or a gynecologist kind of chair where he'd have them strapped in.
Gynecologist.
And when they woke up, like fucking jigsaw style, a tape would start, and it would literally be like him doing this monologue, and he's explaining to them how things are going to be, and that's it. This is the way things are going to be. This is what's going to happen to you. And no, in his case, he released some of them, and there was a chance that he was going to release you.
Was this the thing of like what I've said? Like, if you, do you know, like some theory, like you play along, like.
No. He drugged you in such a way that you couldn't remember the shit. One woman didn't find out about it until the cops came to her and they were like, hey, Were you ever in the area or around David Parker? I was like, no. You were never in his house? No. We found this videotape of you being raped in his house. He used to have his dogs come in and rape him. Him and his wife would be fucking torturing him and raping him in front of people, guests.
Jesus.
And all this stuff. And eventually, like, in some cases, he'd drug them enough so that they couldn't remember shit and he'd release them back out. One woman's husband left her because she went missing she was missing for like a week and then came back and, obviously looking all scuffed up, worse for wear. And it was, he wouldn't believe her where she was, or that she didn't know where she had been. And
obviously
he said,
the marriage broke down.
She said, yeah, you've been cheating on me, get the fuck out. And he left her.
Do you know, even if I was her, if he came back, I'd be like, how could you, like the most traumatizing thing of my life, and you could not.
I think you should be, if you're a close enough couple, you should be able to tell if the person is lying or genuinely confused about where they've been, because I think someone who doesn't know where they've been for a week is going to have a certain look of confusion over their face. Yeah. You can tell that look of confusion. You can tell. It's like certain times where I think somebody's lying to me and I call them out on something, and you can know instantly by the impression on their face whether they knew this was coming or whether you're after catching them completely off guard. And I think like that would be the look of the person. It would be wide-eyed. I have no fucking idea where I've been and terrified because of that. Oh, yeah. And it should be obvious to you then, well, fuck me, she's not lying to me. Like, but
I think, to be honest, if I was kind of like held like that if I'm missing a week like somewhere, I would be more likely, my brain would go to alien abduction before it would go to I was held in this guy's room for a week.
I would say fuck that guy for having his missus missing for a week and not going looking for her.
Was he not looking for her?
Well, apparently fucking not. He assumed she was gone off with something. No, to be fair, from what I can't verify this 100% right now, but I do believe the area was it was a rough bar he used to pull him out of. So the people in the area were known for being a little looser with fucking shit. So it was a possibility maybe she had done it before and that he was just assuming that. But still, it's not cool. Obviously it's not bad. And then this scares the shit out of me is this idea of a killer who wants to see you scared. Yeah. Whose main goal is to soak up all this fucking terror from you before fucking finally killing you. And again, this story is kind of full of that. Like again, we'll talk about Peter Bunch, the New York Ripper, last week or a couple of weeks ago in our last episode. And I kind of, it was all quick. Like, he used the other guy, the two-finger guy, to try and scare him into position, but it wasn't a long drawn out instance of torture and hold them in place and stuff like that. It's the torture that fucking does me in, like, that terrifies me, like, At least if it's quick, it's over, the person isn't scared that long. It's a terrible way to go. But having it drawn out, and for the family members knowing that something is being dragged out and that they had to suffer to get to where they were, like, is harder again as well, like, So the bunker, which was originally meant for disasters, quickly became the studio for the gang's new venture, making and selling amateur pornography. That's why I asked Amy that earlier. I wasn't planning on building a porno bunker off the back. Sadie would be the big star of the show and they would pay other girls to jump in with her. Then Krug and Weasel would take turns working the camera and performing with the girls. They shot a lot of films, only problem is none of them were safe for release because usually the co-star was on police file as missing and were almost certainly dead.
Oh shit.
So this is obviously, again, we've talked about this before. I touch on it briefly. I like to touch on it briefly because it's something that people should remember, and that's in the age of dating apps, anonymous sex is still dangerous. Very dangerous, fuck. And or just going off with people you just met, which is definitely hypocritical of me. Because I convinced a lot of girls to come on and then go off with me that had just met me, that would go home or go to a party with me. Not necessarily sleep with me, but there was a lot of girls who like see us out and we'd call, I'd start talking to them, they'd come back to the house with us anyway,
like, yeah.
And you don't know where you're fucking going, like, And I would admit I have went to random house parties before not knowing who I was going into and ended up in some fairly rough situations as well where I was like, I shouldn't be here. I need to get the fuck out of here. No, I kept doing that. Roll the dice. Fine. But everybody else shouldn't roll the dice. You should learn and be good.
Josh is immortal. So.
But again, we've talked about this a number of times about how regulating sex work, like prostitution and stuff like that, probably better than leaving it being illegal. Yeah. Because at least these women will be safe. These people will be safe, you know? And they're not relying on gangsters to protect them.
That's true.
Same reason I keep saying stuff like marijuana should be legal, because then you're not empowering fucking gangsters to sell this stuff to kids. It's regulated. People can just go to the shop and get it, and it's easier to control. Because if there's not a demand for it, then the dealers aren't going to fucking bother with it. Yeah. It's the same reason why all the big gangsters aren't selling tobacco. Do you know?
Well, I mean, like, they're going to have to do it, because if they're planning on getting rid of fags, I mean, like, there's a huge chunk of tax gone missing.
So, yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I'm saying. You need to regulate that stuff to take the power out of people away from people like this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the 70s, that was a very, very, very long way away. And a lot of these girls who were getting into like stuff like sex work or pornography and stuff like that were generally going to get their break this way. Being randomly fucking discovered. And bought to a little back room and met with a bunch of disgusting looking guys and...
Nice. So the killing started with the porn business.
Oh, yeah, of course it did. As a group, yeah. But individually, they all claim to have a kill or two under their belts. It's pretty much accepted that Krug had at least 2 kills before 1965. His own brother, Francis, and a friend by the name of Gunnar Charleston. It's believed Francis was killed out of jealousy and Gunnar for his identity and social security payments.
And why was he jealous of his brother, though?
His brother had some physical disabilities and got the lion's share of his parents' attention. In fact, it was the reason he had to move in with his grandmother as a child. When his parents split, his mother couldn't cope with the challenge of Francis's disabilities, along with 4 other kids, and Krug never forgot that, and he kind of held a bit of a grudge about it. Yeah. This grudge would boil over and lead to Francis becoming, I can't say Francis, there's too many S's there. Even when I do I only discovered this lately as well, because I'm terrible at grammar, and I've learned my grammar's gotten better from doing the writing.
Yeah.
And I never knew you were supposed to, if there's an S at the end of someone's name or the S at the end of something and you want to pluralize it, you don't put comma S, you just put a comma there, and that's the job done.
Yeah.
And it's been confusing the shit out of me. But yeah, so the grudge that Krug held against Francis would lead to him becoming his first victim.
Okay.
Krug used to refer to him as the leech in conversations with Sadie, and said that he didn't deserve to live. In December 1960, Francis was living with his mother in San Francisco, California, when Krug stopped by on a road trip up north and asked Francis to come along to a house-sitting job. Francis was never seen again, and his mother reported him missing. Krug resurfaced on New Year's Day in 1961 to rent a room in a house on 19th Street under the false name of Alan Dre. He stole Francis's identity, opened the P.O. box in his name, and began cashing his disability checks. Krug later forged a letter to their mother claiming to be Francis and wrote that he had moved away to live with drug dealers in Reno, Nevada. Any other good mother would go looking for the kid that had went to move in with drug dealers in Nevada. Krug didn't kill again until 1964 when Francis's checks started to dry up and he needed a new source of income. Gunnar Charleston was a former postman and drama coach from Morgan Hill, California. Meeting at a gun range, Krug and Gunnar became fast friends. I can't imagine a drama teacher who is also a fan of guns and a militia guy. That must be an intense drama fucking school.
Sounds like there'd be a lot of Civil War reenactments.
They had a lot in common as they both valued survival skills and the weaponry world. And on May 22nd, Stillo invited Gunnar to go on a road trip to Las Vegas for rest and relaxation after his divorce. Gunnar's divorce, that is.
Yeah.
Gunnar left his daughter with a babysitter, and a couple of days later, Krug returned alone in Gunnar's van and told the babysitter that Gunnar had run off with a woman. Gunnar Charleston was never seen again. So that was Krug's 2 before the gang started. Sadie claims to have shot one guy when her hooker scam didn't go up according to plan. The guy fought back, apparently, but nobody was ever found to corroborate this claim. Weasel, on the other hand, claimed 3 to his friends, but is actually suspected of a string of unsolved murders throughout California and is thought to have been a very active serial killer before joining the gang, but it has never been proven.
Yes, so Weasel is believed to have raped and murdered at least 6 women between May 1959 and June 1960 in Los Angeles, California. A lot of them were elderly and all but one was strangled. There was a load of suspects at the time, but there was a description given by one of the witnesses that matched his description. And they also said that he used to bounce a ball.
And that was seen at a few different...
That was seen at a few of
A
them.
guy bouncing a ball. I wonder why he ditched the bouncing ball later on.
Maybe it was because he was being recognised too easily.
Yeah, I suppose so. Like fucking Richard Ramirez, they were going to catch him on his shoes. So he was leaving shoe imprints at most of the murders.
Yeah.
And they had this evidence against him. So once they arrested him, they would have been able to identify him by his shoe print and what murders he had been on and charge him with those murders. Then I can't remember who it was. I can't remember. I think it might have been the mayor of California or something like that. I'm not 100% sure about that. Basically, someone came forward in the news and said, oh yeah, we found this print of, and she named the particular brand of shoes, and Richie Ramirez was listening to this news report and then went out and dumped his shoes over a bridge.
No, for fuck's sake.
Yep, and that was that lead. Fucked.
Lovely.
So, yeah. So, as I said, the building and stocking of the bunker wiped out the gang's funds. So the plan was to shoot some blue movies, make copies, and sell them at the gun shows. Only problem is, to make that plan work, they would require equipment. It said that Weasel was the first to suggest that they just rob it. Now remember, we're talking about a group of 3 people who claim to have previously killed people for money and possibly, in Weasel's case, for fun. So going directly to the nearest electronics shop and ripping it off wasn't really an option if they wanted to keep the heat off them. Now I say that because I kind of wanted to explain that. Like, if I want to stay off the fucking radar, if I'm going to go down and rob a shop in the middle of the town, it's going to bring about unwanted attention. The cops are going to be there, the news is going to be there. Whereas if it's the robbery of a house or something like that, it's a little more low key. It's not front page news.
I would assume as well, like,
alarms going off all over the place and sirens up and down the main street, you know.
That's it. You're going to have to plan your escape route to a T if you do it in the centre of town.
That's it. So in this case, they thought the best thing to do would be to find people who had what they needed or had the money for what they needed and target those people.
Okay.
So the first victim of Krug's group was a Jeff D. Armour. Armour was, again, an acquaintance from the gun shows. Krug and Weasel lured him to Krug's ranch under the guise of making a gun sale with the man. He was last seen by his girlfriend when he left the house to go meet the pair, but failed to give her their names or the location of the gun sale. He was not seen again until his body was found years later buried under a chicken coop on the Krug's ranch. Krug again took on his identity in order to receive his government checks and wrote a letter to Armour's girlfriend as Armour, again like Francis, claiming to have run off. This time though it was with a militia friend to prepare for the end of times. Something I've read that was extremely plausible, as Armour was also a prepper and outspoken on his views when it came to the state of the world and the inevitable fall of the United States government.
Okay, it's honesty time. We have a confession to make. We suck at socials, no good at Insta, can't send a tweet or an X or whatever that super villain looking motherfucker is calling it now. Stick to your space cars, Elon. But we know you want to chat. You want to be kept updated. You want to be alive all the goddamn time. So we're getting down from the antisocial soapbox and giving this a try. So come chat to us on Insta and Twitter at IIiadis or hit us up by email at itsalivealivepod@gmail.com. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. This is a project. It's still a work in progress, and we just want to give you more what you like and less of what you can't stand. So give us a like, give us a follow. We'll always hit you back, and we'll always try to reply to everyone. So come say hi. We don't bite. Well, at least Amy doesn't. And she keeps me well fed, so you got nothing to worry about. Now, back to the show.
So that was a crazy break. Loads of thunder and lightning here. Kids lost their mind. Power went out for a split second. Dog doesn't know what's going on. This is Sunday in Ireland. If people who are listening don't know, like if you're Irish, you're going to know it's but I'm just saying, if you're listening to it now on Wednesday, this was last Sunday, and it was like thunder fucking and lightning all over the south of the country.
I was looking at the map of Ireland a minute ago, and all the thunder strikes up around our area. Something else.
So we had to stop there to go up and calm our kids down who were also losing their shit.
There's another one forecast at 2:00.
But we used to, I don't know what that is. I can't remember thunder and lightning being this crazy when I was a kid. But since we moved out here to the country, I have had so many instances of thunder and lightning like shaking the fucking house when it's around here. Like, it's
there was one
intense.
night though in Cal's Park. It was definitely one in the top 3 maybe that we've had, and you slept like a log through it. The roof was off the Brandon. I mean, like I was terrified with a newborn baby in my hands, and you were snoring like a log down there.
That's because I feel safe. I know it's just Thor fucking banging the hammer. I'm good.
Hotels lost their roofs.
They're unbelievers and they deserve what they got. Anyway, the next murder wasn't until early the following year and was that of Jack McFarlane, the radio personality from San Francisco, California. McFarlane was an openly gay man who lived with another man named Will Truman. McFarlane placed a personal ad in a low-key newspaper offering to give oral sex to straight men. That night, a stranger knocked on the door and McFarlane assumed it was someone taking him up on his offer. But as soon as he opened the door, a man whipped out a pistol and shot him in the head at close range. Truman ran from the back room into the study and found McFarlane on the floor. He was also immediately shot in the chest and left for dead. The shooter and an accomplice entered the house, grabbing some valuables and some DJ equipment and fled. Truman survived the attacks and called 911. When the police questioned him, he was able to give a description of the shooter and it matched the then unknown Weasel perfectly. Obviously, the gang felt the heat and decided to lay low. What they had stolen from McFarlane gave them enough money for the right lights, and the cameras and the equipment they had stolen covered the sound. So they put their life of crime on hold and became pornographers. Alright. It was actually a porn transaction that led to their next murder in the summer of 1966. Leonard Lake, a local Nazi scumbag, heard the men talking at a gun show and decided to try and rob their van and in turn their stockpile of blue movies. Now, I should have said just before we got into this, be warned, because this is where the nasty shit starts.
Yikes.
Weasel caught him in the act, knocking him out and tying him with fish wire in the back of the van. He then went and got Krug and Sadie and they took their hostage home to their bunker. Now, I wouldn't wish this gang on anyone, but I can tell you now, there's no one shedding a tear for the loss of Leonard fucking Lake, who himself was a suspected rapist and murderer with many, many convictions for various hate crimes. That being said, this death was particularly vile and it was caught all on tape. In the tape, the first of their snuff movies, the nasty trio can be heard mocking the man, telling him that if he liked porno so badly, he should have just told him and they would have made him a gun show porn star. They then proceeded to beat, stab, cut and sodomize the man with various different instruments. In one part of the video, you see them slowly peel back sections of the man's skin while forcing a rusty pipe inside of him. It's pretty fucking disgusting.
Yeah, sounds disgusting.
The video ends with Krug cutting the man's throat as he took him from behind, just as he himself came to climax. They buried Lake close to where Armour's body lay under the chicken coop. It wouldn't be discovered until the gang came to police attention about 5 years later.
Do any of these people have family to look for them?
Yeah, Lake's militia buddies reported his disappearance to cops and conducted their own investigation, but they were so racist that they couldn't conceive of the idea of a white man doing this to Lake. Plus, he had absolutely no connection to Krug and company. It was, a random chance encounter.
Yeah.
Lake overheard them and got caught in the act, and no one had a plan here. It just all happened. So, as I said, this was the first snuff rape movie that the gang had made. And as I said, it wasn't planned. Just an act of revenge that got way out of hand. I mean, to an average person, this act, even on a man as deplorable as Leonard Lake, seems beyond belief and a thing of absolute fucking nightmares. But not for Krug, Weasel and Sadie. They found they enjoyed every second of it. And the only thing they all agreed on was that it would probably be more fun with a good-looking person, especially a young woman.
I take it that Lake wasn't a looker then.
Militia, Nazi, rapist, scumbag. Looked exactly how you'd expect. Dirty, hairy, fat, smelly, the works.
Yuck.
So who do I picture when I think of this guy?
Somebody from Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah. I know it was some other movie. Maybe it's just because I've been watching Alien so much. There's some nasty fuckers.
Oh, in American History X. definitely there'd be something there that I'd be not American History X. Yeah, that's the one with the skinheads. Not skinheads, but they're the kind of
Yeah, the Nazis. Yeah. Fucking. Yeah. So, a few weeks after the murder of Leonard Lake, the terrifying trio decided to put their new plan into action, forgetting about the business venture over their own pleasure. And on the 18th of November 1966, Bambi Woods, 16, was picked up hitchhiking close to the Stillo Ranch. She was never seen again, and her body was never recovered. Tapes of what happened to her were found on the property during the police investigation in 1952. In the tapes, we see a distraught Woods crying as Krug explains to her what he is about to do to her, what's about to happen to her even, taking pleasure in seeing the girl's torment as he went into every detail of what was in store. Then the group takes turns raping and torturing the girl before finally again Krug finishes her the same way he did Lake a few months earlier. Wood's disappearance was reported by her parents, but outside of a few witnesses that saw her hitchhiking near Krug's ranch, no real evidence came to light and the case just went cold. So again, this is kind of what we were saying about when you're doing something that's random and anonymous. That's the problem with random and anonymous. Nobody knows where you are. No one knows what you're doing. So it's easier for you to go missing and not be found.
Definitely. Because statistically, they look at the family, not the family, but the closest people, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Where they look at people that's known to you and look through their records first. So even if they do eventually get around to looking outside of your direct fucking friend group and family, it's going to take them some time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which gives the actual killer an advantage. And I mean, that's why serial killers go on as long as they do. They don't pick people who are attached to them. They pick random people who it's harder to make a link back to you with, you know?
Yeah.
So obviously with the town searching for Bambi Wood, Krug and company had to again keep a low profile. They went back to performing alone, making hardcore BDSM videos for the gun show clientele with Sadie as their very willing star. Feeling the heat, they agreed to put the snuff movies behind them and focus on making Sadie a mainstream star. So they knuckled on down and went to work. Everything was actually going alright for a little while. They made their videos, minded their own business, and were making a nice little profit in the meantime.
So basically OnlyFans, but before the internet, like it's not really harming anyone. And if they just done this and not killed anyone, then they'd just be the weird swinger family in the neighbourhood.
Funny you mentioned the neighbourhood, because it was by being this weird swinger family that they happened across their next victims, the Ng family. Charles and Charlotte Ng, along with their 12-month-old son Charles Jr., moved in right next door to Krug's ranch. The Ngs, both in their late 20s, were hardcore Christian Republicans and were none too pleased to find that their new neighbours were unlicensed pornographers.
Oh, well, yeah.
In fact, when Charles first met his new neighbours for the first time, Krug and Weasel started the conversation by showing the shocked man and new BDSM pictures they had just been working on that morning with Sadie. In the horror-themed pictures, it appeared as if Sadie was being cut open and tortured. The budding relationship was further strained when Krug made a pass at Charlotte Ng, saying she had a great look and had she ever considered taking some sexy pictures or being in blue movies. Do you know what I find funny about this scenario? Is they're both, like, you kind of think of America as Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah.
But these are two Republicans on very different fucking degrees. Same fucking basic fucking principles, and then it goes way, way off, like, you know. Charles Ng actually reported the pair to the police, leading to them calling to the ranch to check it out. This wasn't a big deal for Krug, since he was doing nothing wrong by filming and photographing his very alive girlfriend Sadie. They got a warning to behave and the police were off. Now, like I said, not a big deal for the gang, but still they'd use the slight inconvenience as a reason to zone in on their new neighbours.
Okay.
Now, Charles, they wanted to kill because of the police and his uptight, better than you kind of attitude. And Charlotte, because Krug and Weasel had become enamoured with the very attractive 28-year-old Asian American woman. They spent the next few weeks fantasizing, going on and on about the woman and all the tortures they'd love to put her through. This new obsession eventually began to wear on Sadie, who, feeling a bit jealous, said enough was enough, put up or shut up, stop talking about it and let's just do it. So it seems as if Krug himself went to the neighbour's house and apologised to the Ngs, pointing out the fact that they would have to live next to each other for the foreseeable future and they should, maybe try and start over again on a better foot. Krug invited the family over for dinner that evening under the guise of making up and starting new. They accepted, and that evening, Charles, Charlotte, and Charlie Jr. came to the ranch for what would be their last meal. Can you imagine dinner with these fucks?
I think it'd get confusing between Charles, Charlotte, and Charlie.
I know, almost like they're not real names. But it just sounds like the fucking Sawyers all over again, to be honest with you. There's so many of these people out here that love having dinner before they but they just love having dinner before they kill people. It's just a bit fucked up.
It's supposed to put you at your ease, technically. Like a warm invite to give you something nice to eat.
All right, I'll tell you how it went then. So sometime after dinner. So yeah, I suppose maybe things were cool for dinner.
Yeah,
everything was fine. Everything was chill.
That's the theme of it.
Well, after dinner, the atmosphere began to change as the conversation began to get darker.
Yeah.
We have this information because the gang recorded the whole crime on video, even the setup and the reveal. They really played up like, horror movie villains in this. So, and they wanted to get every second of it down to catching them off guard, scaring them, and everything that will come afterwards,
Yeah.
On the tape, we can hear Krug and Weasel bring up the topic of their porn venture, and again, they begin to make veiled passes at Charlotte Ng. Charles begins to get a little upset before Krug assures him they're only playing around and leaves the room to get the after-dinner dessert. While Krug's outside of the room, Weasel, who is sitting close to Charlotte, begins to tease the young woman, slowly but surely getting deeper and deeper into her personal space. Charles, who had enough, leapt from his chair in anger, only to be met by a clubbing blow of a meat tenderizer from Krug, who had come bursting into the room. As Charles slumped back into the chair, Krug wrapped a tie around his neck and began to pull. As this was going on, Charlotte was being held in place by Sadie and Weasel, being forced to watch her husband trashing around helplessly and dying right in front of her. I won't go into more detail, but unfortunately Charles Jr. met an almost identical fate to his father. Charlotte, on the other hand, would stay alive for another few days as the gang filmed themselves beating, raping and torturing the grief-stricken and terrified woman. In the end, she would meet the same fate as the victims before her, with Krug and what he called the money shot.
That's fucking vile.
In any case when that's being used, even in regular porn when they call it the money shot, it's nasty.
Yeah.
It just sounds disgusting. Val Venus used to call that was his finishing move, the money shot. Pretty sure it was leapfrog or that fucking I can't think of the word now. Frog splash from the top.
Ugh, that's worse. The frog splash.
I wouldn't mind. He's a violent fuck now as well. He completely against trans rights and all that kind of shit, and he's talking shit about them, but then he forgot to copyright his own name, Val Venus. He's been wrestling for all the years, and some trans group took control of it, and now it leads you to like a fucking trans rights fucking page.
I will say it's an amazing name for like a drag queen or like, do you know what?
He was his gimmick was he was a porn star, retired porn star come wrestler.
Oh, he sounds like a woman. Val Venus, I would have said was a woman's porn star's name. Yeah.
He used to come out with remember he had like the
I remember
back taller around his waist and be, hello ladies, and he'd be wiggling his hips and shit.
Wishes.
So things are beginning to ramp up with this gang. First, they kill two men for financial gain with Armour and Truman. Then they kill, not Truman, McFarlane. Truman survived. Then they kill Lake for revenge. Bambi Woods is where it takes a turn from business to pleasure. And now they're wiping out whole families for both pleasure and convenience. And let's face it, once you kill a baby, you're pretty much beyond the point of no return in terms of evil deeds.
Yeah.
So with the seal well and truly broken, the gang would now not only accept this as their fate, but would lean into it with everything they got. But first, they would again have to lie low for a while, the perils of hunting close to home.
Surely they were questioned for this disappearance, though. I mean, things went missing only a few days after calling the cops on the gang. It's a little obvious.
Yeah, they were questioned in relation to it, all right. But the thing about it is the Ngs had no family or friends in the area. They just moved from across the country for Ng's new job, which he wasn't supposed to start for another month. He moved down early to get, some time to settle in. So it was nearly 5 weeks before the cops called to the Ngs residence at all, to go looking for them.
Yeah.
At that stage, any sign of the Ngs were gone from the ranch. The bodies were dissolved in a homemade acidic bath, and their bones were crushed and scattered over the nearby woods. All that was left was the hidden videotape documenting the whole horrific event. Eventually, the heat died down and the gang proceeded again with caution. The gang learned two things from the Ng murders. One, they enjoyed mentally torturing the couple, and killing Charles in front of Charlotte was fun for them, apparently. And two, the baby brought on too much heat and brought them little joy in return.
I imagine it's easier to convince a couple to come back to the ranch. Like a girl on her own might be a bit more cagey about the setup.
Making it both fun and convenient in the gang's eyes. They again left about 6 months between their murders. I say about 6 months because it's hard to say when exactly these murders took place, as they started to target hitchhikers, and the timestamp on their camera footage seems to be off by a few years, never mind the time, day and month part.
Oh.
We know the two couples went missing in 1968, although the date stamp on the footage is for like May of 1961 or some shit.
Okay.
In the footage, we see an almost identical scenario play out. The gang are drinking with the couple and eventually start up a conversation about pornography. They poke and prod and make passes at the woman, all as a way to antagonize the man into some sort of an argument. They would then murder the man in front of his partner, then they would hold the woman hostage for a few days, shooting footage for their private library. This was the fate for married couple Tom and Tina Myers and the young couple Jim Bright and Clara Lynn McBride. I knew I was going to fuck that up.
Clara Lynn.
Clara Lynn. Tom and Tina Myers were visiting the area and met Krug and Sadie in a local bar after hitting it off with the couple. After the bar closed up, Krug and Sadie convinced the swinging couple to come back to their house for some more booze and fun. But it all turned out to be a little bit too much for the usually free and easy Myers couple, when Tom was quickly wound up by Weasel, who he hadn't met until returning to the ranch. Jim and Clara Lynn, on the other hand, were hitchhikers who Weasel picked up on their way out of town. The perfect scenario because anyone local that knew them were expecting them to be gone. Again, the same old story. They go to the ranch, the gang kill Jim and do what they do to Clara Lynn. All their bodies were again dissolved in acidic baths, and their bones were pulverized and scattered in the local woodlands. I was always surprised. I thought that would be a good way of getting rid of a body. How are they going to find all that shit? But apparently there has been a few cases where they have found like just tiny fragments of bones in like woodlands that they would expect them to be dumping the bodies and stuff like that, you know?
There was a case of, I can't remember the girl's name, but she was linked to a serial killer, and it's actually on that autopsy, the American autopsy show. But basically she went missing 1 year, and she went off hiking, and they knew that she went with a plait in her hair. And like just under a year later, they never found any other part of her except like she was like something off a bog body, like she
just her hair, like
with the plait on it. They were like, we know she's gone like that.
Someone scalped her, like.
Her body could have been dumped, and it could have been wild animals. Like they're not sure. Yeah, but they were.
Would they not be able to tell if it was if a knife was used or a scalpel was used in the scenario over teeth?
Yeah, but you're talking about soft tissue over the space of a year.
Yeah. Either way, they felt it was working for them because in the 60s, people probably weren't looking too closely into it. And they dumped this double couple murder in there, along with a few others that they had done beforehand. After the double couple murder in 1968, the gang were dying to go again, but more complaints were issued to police about their unlicensed pornography studio, and Weasel was even arrested at a gun show for selling the tapes, earning him a night in the slammer and a small fine. Again, for the time being, the gang were kept at bay as they waited for the heat to die down. This time though, they found it harder to subdue the feeling, causing infighting and a near split as Weasel went missing for about a month after a particularly bad scrap with Krug. It took some time, but by the end of 1969, they again felt safe enough to attack. Weasel was back and they had all patched things up, and what better way to celebrate than going out on the hunt again. This time they targeted a lone woman by the name of Linda Borman. Borman, a local stripper, was abducted as she left the club where she worked. CCTV footage of that night shows Krug, Weasel and Sadie partying the night away before being kicked out for constantly touching the employees. It was Borman's complaint to management that eventually saw the group ejected, marking her as their next target. It's believed they waited outside till after closing and just scooped her up off the side of the road. Now, in her video, you can see that this girl is defiant to the bitter end with these guys. It's for that reason that, unlike other victims, Linda Borman didn't survive the night with Krug and company.
Yeah, they usually like to milk this shit for a few days, right?
Yeah, maybe they had gotten a bit more cautious with all the missing person investigations, or maybe she really did just keep fighting them and they feared a flight risk. But yeah, they tortured, raped, dissolved and scattered the remains of Borman in less than 24 hours. This will be their last murder as a three-piece group, as not long after this murder, Krug's son would show up on his doorstep. You know, the whole time I'm writing this, I can't help but wonder where the fuck the name Krug came from and what would make you name your son that. Not a worry Krug Stillo's obviously had, because I mean he named his son that as well, Krug Jr.
It is an odd name. It sounds like a caveman name.
Yeah, I'd just be happy with Junior after that. Just call me Junior. You see that about that woman who was, because of the fucking rise in Game of Thrones name, that woman, yeah, she couldn't get her fucking kid a passport.
They got it passed in the end.
Well, yeah, it wasn't because of the name, it was because of the fucking passport office fucking up.
Yeah.
Trying to, they were telling her that she had to get the rights to the name from fucking Warner Brothers.
That's like trying to get in with your name Kylie, but you need to get because Kylie Jenner has a trademark.
Oh, Kylie Minogue had it before that.
Kylie Minogue, like, you know, that kind of way.
Oh, God. So, yeah.
It's the what's Junior's story? Like, who's his mom and where had she been all this time?
Oh, all good questions. Which I will answer next week. Okay. Along with Junior's origin, we'll talk about the gang's downfall, Krug's original arrest and escape, and the gang's eventual fatal encounter with Dr. John and Estelle Collingwood. So stay tuned, because this story is only just heating up. So yeah, nice comeback after summer, huh?
Yeah, that was
Boom.
fun.
2 weeks off, back to rape and murder. Lovely. 2 weeks of it too. Season finale. We got to go double rape, double murder.
Yeah. So, quick plug before we go. We have a new Playing with Bones this week where I cover kind of the Romans and an Egyptian or two in kind of basically mental illness. It's kind of the
Oh,
end
it's
of
fun. I like that one, to be honest. We kind of got into all the
Nero in particular. He's a bit mad.
They all like shagging their sisters and their cousins and their brothers and people who look like their dead wives. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
really look like their dead
then
wives.
after they die, the person that looks like their dead wife goes back to marry their first husband because they're attracted to them for looking like their dead wife. It's a fucking weird one.
Unreal. And along with that, we have Mini Monsters coming out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, but you can get them all right now on Patreon, along with Real Monsters, where we dissect and discuss all the mini topics of the week.
All that, and you get ad-free access to our main show and the weekend update, all for just $5 a month. That's on Patreon at It's Alive Alive Pod, and now the first 7 days are free, so it costs nothing to go and check it out.
And don't forget to check us out on all socials at Alive Alive Pod, except TikTok, because we're still banned there, and X, because Josh refuses to be a Twitter dickhead, and rightly so.
We'll be back next Wednesday with more tales from the Horrorverse. It's the Live Alive podcast, all the guts and gore with none of the guilt. See you all next time. Same Live Alive time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye bye.
Hey, love you. Bye bye.